Hey everybody, it's me, Zach. This is Judy, and welcome back to our channel. Hey everybody! Today I'm back for another episode, and actually the season finale episode of 1,000 Pound Sisters, which, I'm gonna be honest, I'm a bad fan, I'm a bad reviewer of this show because I didn't realize this was the season finale! And also, I just thought I would give you all a hair reveal. Who is she? Who is she? Who is she? I very safely went and got my hair cut today. I was the only customer in the whole salon when I went there. It felt like a very safe experience for me. And I feel good. And I look good too. Wow. Who is she? Oh my gosh. Also, before we jump into this video too far, I do want to give Judy a chance to share her thoughts today. So Judy, what's up?
I'm thirsty and I gotta fart.
Okay, well, thank you, Miss Judy Lou Who. always happy to hear from ya. So before we get too far into this video, there are some things to update you on that happened between last week's episode and this week's episode on social media. There was enough stuff that I actually made a whole separate video covering some of the things that went on. So if you haven't had a chance to watch the video I titled, I think it's called What You're Not Seeing on 1,000 Pound Sisters, something like that. I don't know why it took me so long to figure that out. But if you haven't watched that, I'll leave it linked up above and down below so you can go check that out, because I am going to be talking about some of those things, probably referring to some of those things. Mostly the whole point of that video, though, was to talk about the editing that has taken place over the course of probably both season 1 and season 2, but for sure things that we know that were edited kind of out of order, out of control on season 2. Now, one thing that has been an update since I posted that video on Monday is that Amy actually commented on that video, and she had this to say. Chris tested positive 2 days after Gage came home also. Jerry didn't leave. He lived with Tammy almost a year. So we did end up in last night's episode finding out that Chris did in fact test positive as well. They covered that on the show, but what they don't cover on the show is that Jerry had been living with Tammy for almost a year. I'm sorry, TLC, what in the hell? What are we doing here? What is going on? That changes a lot of things, I think, about how a lot of people would probably view Jerry himself. In fact, a lot of people thought I was too harsh on Jerry at different points, as opposed to how they didn't think I was hard enough on Tammy. I mean, there's also a number of people, when I say that a lot of people didn't feel like I was this, that, or the other, there's also a lot of people that agree with me, which is why, I love that the comment section exists and that we get to have these conversations, right? And so I will say that, knowing that Jerry had been living with Tammy for almost a year actually really does change some of my thoughts about what is going on. For instance, it changes my thoughts on, is he really in this? Is this a serious relationship? Does he want to be around and help her? Obviously, to some extent, he did want it to be some kind of relationship, because it wasn't what they portrayed on the show, where he was just there for a little bit and then he peaced out. I think, again, like I mentioned in my video on Monday, it's important to keep some level of context and thought process about how this is all a reality television show. They're showing us what they want to show us, and we can still talk about it. It's still fun to talk about. I still want to discuss it. But let's not, go too quickly into, demonizing somebody that you saw on a reality TV show, because, that might not be the full picture, the full story, or fully representative of who these people are. So that is about the extent of the stuff that happened offline. Again, please go check out that video if you want the full tea about what happened. But let's jump into this week's episode and the season finale, which, again, I had no idea what is happening. Can y'all believe that? So the episode picks up where the last episode left off, which was that Tammy had tested positive. It lets us know that she actually was hospitalized for 2 weeks in a nearby Indiana hospital, and that she was having a lot of shortness of breath, and that she had tested positive for COVID, right? So the first actual scene, because they cover all of that in some text blocks that pop up on the screen. And the first actual scene is between Amy and Michael, and they're talking about Tammy finally making it home and how they're excited that she made it back. Amy was really thinking like the worst could happen. And I think honestly a lot of people online, if I remember correctly, or at least I can speak to what I thought at the time, was that I was like really worried for Tammy. Like honestly, she's so lucky to have survived both COVID and pneumonia at the same time. Like either one of those things on its own should have been enough to like take her out. And I'm obviously very glad and fortunate that she is still here with us, that she is still living. But I'm sure that was very scary for people in her actual life, like Amy and Chris and Michael and everybody that is on the show. So they had this little scene where Amy takes over some food to Tammy but leaves it on like a chair outside of Tammy's door, and Tammy gives us a little update on her oxygen, about how at some point they had her on like 15 liters of oxygen, which she says is a lot. I'm not a medical professional, so I don't know, but I'm guessing that that's probably a lot. I would guess that's a lot. I don't know. It sounds scary regardless of how much oxygen she did or didn't need. Like the fact that she's on oxygen period still. I mean, you can go see her TikToks, like sis is still on some oxygen, okay? The fact that she needs this to like live is scary, and I just like hope she gets better. Now, this whole scene feels a little weird to me. Like it's fascinating to me that they have Amy talking to Tammy through a window, but it also seems like there's clearly somebody inside of Tammy's apartment who is actually doing the recording, which to me just feels like, TLC, what are we doing here when it comes to safety and COVID precautions? Now, I'm not sure how much they actually have real crew and camera people actually in Tammy's home during this time, but it is also very clear to me throughout actually this whole episode that the camera quality changes a lot. So I feel like to some extent they might have set up some like not man operated cameras in their homes to help get some of this footage. And that makes me feel better, but it did look very clearly like somebody with a professional, fancy-ass TV camera was in her home. And I'm just like, why are we going through all of this stuff with Amy standing outside in the cold talking through a window when y'all have a cameraman? Like, not that I'm saying Amy's doing the wrong thing. I think Amy's doing absolutely the right thing. I'm just like, why do y'all got a camera crew inside? Why are we doing this? Like, could you not wait until Tammy just full on was 100% COVID negative? Like, could we not have done that? Could we not have done that part? That's the part I don't understand. It's around this time when they're talking that we find out that Chris also got COVID, and Amy says something like, I don't think Tammy or Chris know exactly how they got it. And honestly, that's probably true to some extent. I had a lot of people who responded to my video on Monday that were like, how could Tammy know that that's exactly where she got it? And well, here's what I want to say about that. Tammy probably does have a pretty decent idea because Tammy doesn't go outside that often, y'all. Tammy only goes out so often. And so when she said in my DMs, in case you forgot it, I'll put it up again. But she said that she knows she got it from going to the Mexican restaurant and that TLC like told her she had to go film that scene. Now, they did have a scene together talking through the window that I found to be particularly amusing and funny.
I brought you some food. Get your fat ass up and get it. Eat it, bitch.
You're stupid.
It's healthy. It's a banana.
Bananas are healthy?
Compared to the you eat.
It gave me just like major classic Slate and Sister vibes, and I really did appreciate that. Just the absurdity of Amy standing outside this window trying to talk to Tammy. It just made me giggle. They also mention, and by they I mean Amy mentions that Tammy lost weight while she was in the hospital, but she's already gained it all back. And I have so many questions about that as well. Like, how does one lose a significant amount of weight for the 3 weeks that they're in the hospital or however long she was there, and then it's like not even that much longer later and she's allegedly already gained it all back. I don't know. It's probably within the realm of possibilities, but it just seems like a lot to me. And then we fast forward to 1 week later where Chris comes over to join Tammy because they have a weigh-in, an appointment with Dr. Smith. Now, when he first got there, I was like, oh, y'all are gonna go to this appointment. You're all gonna get in a vehicle and go, but it turns out they're doing this virtual appointment moment situation type of deal. Chris shares a little bit about his experience with COVID with us. He talks about how it did suck, how it really messed up his sense of smell and taste, and how he was tired, but that overall he felt very fortunate to not have more concerning symptoms or experiences because of it. And he even mentions like people his size probably have had worse experiences with it than he did. So he feels very fortunate, and I'm glad to hear that he's okay. So they do have this appointment with Dr. Smith, and he talks to them a little bit about their experiences quarantining and being hospitalized and this, that, the other because of COVID. And he does seem a little bit concerned that Tammy is on oxygen for all of her health conditions and places she's been and her experience. But he does say that if she managed to lose the amount of weight that he wanted her to lose prior to having surgery, that she could probably also come off of oxygen if she was able to do that. They're also both pretty honest that they haven't been really doing a great job when it comes to what they're eating and their diet while they have had COVID and been quarantining. And Tammy says something weird to me that's where she says that she had lost weight, but because she got COVID, she gained a whole lot of weight. Listen, or that she had been doing the diet. Either way, none of it makes sense to me. None of it makes sense at all, especially because we know what the results are in just a few minutes when they show on the screen. So they pull out the old hello, it's ready scale.
Hello. It's ready.
And they do their weigh-in right there in Tammy's little kitchen. Chris goes first. He was originally 397 pounds before they got COVID and the last time that he was at Dr. Smith's office. And he gets on the scale and he weighs 390.4 pounds. So he's lost about 6 pounds, a little over 6 pounds. And Dr. Smith is like, you know what? I wish you would have done better, but listen, you had COVID. I get it. Things happen. Life is hard. And I do think that that's like super important to keep in context in general. Like in general, even if they hadn't gotten COVID, like the fact that we're all living and surviving in the middle of a pandemic where hundreds of thousands of people are passing away because of COVID, like sometimes it's enough that you wake up again for another day. And so, you know, the fact that he lost like 6-ish pounds, like good for him. And Dr. Smith is like, listen, if you can lose the additional weight that I had originally asked you to lose, then come talk to me again and we'll get you set up for surgery. Which honestly is a very different vibe than the vibe we get from Dr. Dow or even Dr. Proctor on this show. Like they would, I feel like they would not have said, oh, you only lost 6 pounds. Well, you just lose 8 more. We'll be good to go, sis. I don't think so. Or is it 8 or is it 9? However many more he needed to lose. So Tammy also gets on the scale. The last time she weighed in, she was 644 pounds. This time she is 665 pounds. So she gained an additional 21 pounds, which like I think the last time she weighed in, she had also gained like 20 something pounds. And it's just kind of like wild and scary. Like I think y'all can tell that there is a part of me that really enjoys Tammy as a person, as a character on a television show, as somebody who I've DM'd with. And to me, it really is scary that she isn't able to get control of this situation. And it seems like there's very little left that's gonna like make an impact on her behaviors and how she acts and things like that, that she is willing to try, I guess is what I will say. And Chris is like, oh my gosh, I failed as a diet buddy. Like, I can't believe she gained weight. This is like all my fault. And I'm like, no, it's not. And one thing that I think is like going to be the major takeaway from this episode is that Tammy really has to want to do this for herself. It is clear that having a partner in Chris, a partner in Amy, any other kind of extrinsic motivation, like none of it is going to do it for her, okay? She needs to do it for herself. So yes, you can be encouraging and encouraging and encouraging. And I will say, I feel like we have seen Chris really try to hold her accountable at multiple different points throughout the season. But like at the end of the day, Tammy has to want this for herself. And I'm not convinced that she does. Now, I feel like there was a glimmer of hope in this one particular scene, and then it quickly fades away. That glimmer, it just completely loses its sparkle and it's gone like that. But Tammy does have a moment where she says, listen, I don't know what my problem is. I really can't stop myself from eating like just shit tons of food all at once. I'm addicted, I have a problem. And Dr. Smith even says like, wow, that is like such a shift in the narrative for her because she's so used to blaming it on this, that, the other, XYZ, PDQ, whoever, whatever. And now she's saying, no, like I realize like I cannot stop the eating. I can't do that. And I feel like that is, I mean, when it comes to Tammy Slayton specifically, a shift in her own narrative, right? Because we've seen her push the blame to other people so many times on this show. So many times. So Dr. Smith is like, would you like be willing to revisit the concept of therapy again? Like, would you do that? Is that something you could do? And Tammy's like, yeah, but I don't want to do it with my family. And I'm like, all right, let's get to. Let's do it. Let's do it because honestly, truly, I'm not sure that Amy needed to be there to begin with you. Like, she might need her own therapy, but I agree. I think you could benefit from some one-on-one therapy. I think you would really enjoy it. I think you would find it helpful. So yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Unfortunately, we don't see her do it. It's not something we see her do. And that does make me really sad because I thought for a second she was like onto something there. That she was like, hey, I want to get the help, but I want to do it individually. Because that was finally her saying, I need to do this for me. I don't need to do this with whoever else in my family. Like, I want to do something because I want to work on me specifically. And I wish we could have seen her do it. But I'm guessing, one, TLC didn't have enough time left in the season to make it happen, so they didn't set anything up for her. And then two, because they didn't set it up, because that first time that they went to the therapist, that was already set up. That was already set up for them, so they had to fulfill that part of their contract, but they didn't have enough time to get it set up, so they didn't set it up, so she didn't follow through. That's my speculation, at least. That's what I'm speculating probably happened in this situation. So then the next scene that happens is Tammy finally meeting Gage in person, and I just want to say that for all of y'all who are like, oh my gosh, she's not excited whatsoever to see her nephew. She's not excited about him at all. I think the scene just exemplified that she had some pure joy about meeting her nephew and enjoyed being with him, around him, whoever, whatever. So she does finally get to meet him after testing negative for COVID 3 different times. And Amy gives the fart prince permission to do his business.
I give you full permission to fart on that Tammy.
And I just love it. You know, they have changed me as a human. The beginning of this season, I was like, ugh, farts. The end of this season, I'm like, farts. Yes. Who would have thought? We also got a lot of little bit in this episode, which I think made up for the fact that there was like next to no little bit in the last episode. So this is my little bit shot of the week, right where little bit was curled up or sat up, perched up next to Tammy.
Oh, the little.
I just love that dog so much, and I'm gonna have to have Amy send me some individualized special pictures of just a little bit because that dog is so cute. And the only other thing about this scene that I think is worthwhile for talking about is the fact that they keep talking about Gage being the motivation for Tammy to lose weight. And like, I think for a lot of people that should be something that would be a motivating factor, but I am very strongly feeling that Tammy doesn't need no other motivation. She needs to motivate herself for herself, you know? That's like where I'm at with that. Like, yes, realistically, Gage should be motivation for her, but guess what? He's not motivation for her, okay? You need to motivate yourself. You need to be the reason that you want to do this, okay? So the next scene is Jerry's back in town. He never left, but Jerry's back in town. And they had this moment where Tammy's like, oh, Jerry's presence means that he allegedly is proving that he wants to be in this relationship with me. Which, like, I think, again, is a weird thing, especially now knowing that Amy said that he's, like, never left. Like, I guess that is true. Like, if he's shacked up in her home, that means that he's serious about the relationship. But the producers do ask him, like, where do you see this relationship going? And he says this.
Where are y'all at with your relationship?
It's going good.
I don't know, that just felt like a weird response to me. You can let me know how you feel about his response to that question, but I felt like that is a weird way to answer that question. It feels like you're not trying to commit to a relationship, which is kind of the vibe he's been giving off in confessionals all season long. And like I said, my opinion about Jerry in general does change a little bit. Like, I do think that if he's been here this whole time, then it's very likely that he has been helping her out around the house and doing things that maybe she can't physically do. And so, you know, I do want to caution that we haven't probably seen the whole story. And not probably, we haven't seen the whole story here. They do this little bit where they try some, like, protein shakes or something. And Jerry's like, oh, that's nasty. And Tammy does note that Jerry eating things that are unhealthy around her makes her crave those things, want those things, feel addicted to those things. And she has an honest conversation with him of like, hey, when you make me a cake, when you make a cake for yourself and then you offer me a piece of that cake, like, that's not helpful to me because I'm trying to eat healthy and I just, like, I can't do it. And his response to that is, oh, well, I'm testing you. What kind of manipulative behavior is that? Now see, that I don't know if you can edit that, maybe you can, but that comment to me is actually what's concerning because, you know, later they talk a lot, I think Chris specifically says something about, like, giving drugs to a drug addict and how, like, Jerry giving food to Tammy is like giving drugs to a drug addict, right? And, you know, there's probably a lot of different feelings about that. Those two things are obviously not exactly the same. There's a lot of, like, context and nuance to those situations. But I do feel like if you're really concerned about a person who has openly admitted they're addicted to food and that they can't control themselves around it, you would probably not want to test them with a piece of cake, okay? Nobody needs to be testing her on anything. She failed that test a long time ago, sis. She failed that test. She doesn't need any more tests. We know where she's at. She's failing, okay? Maybe what you can do is give her some support so she doesn't fail the next test when you're not there. Like, the fuck? So after Tammy asks for his support, he says this in a confessional.
Do you feel bad though bringing that into the house?
No, I don't feel bad about it. I ain't trying to lose no weight. I need to gain some.
And I'm just like, what? What? I mean, I don't know what else to say. I'm gonna let y'all form your own opinions, but what? Oh, honey. This whole scene, a mess. Now again, the editing is weird. They probably included this because they have the whole moment later with Tammy's family where they're like, Jerry's enabling you. So I'm sure they needed to put together some stuff to say that. But his own words in this scene were a lot for me personally, okay? And this scene is weird and the editing is weird because they have this whole conversation where Tammy's like, oh, he can move in if he wants. But it's like, again, we know that he did move in for a while, that he was basically living there for a year. So anyways, that was that scene. The next one is Amy and Michael taking Gage out on a walk in the park from season 1, where Tammy got stuck halfway through the walk and then they just kept walking on without her. I don't know if y'all remember that, but that happened in season 1. They gave you a little refresher in this episode if you had forgotten. And this scene is mostly to do 2 things. The first one is for Amy to talk about how she hasn't exercised a whole lot, but how she wants to do more so she can have another baby. And the other half of this is that Amy has something big and scary that she needs to share with Michael, and she's not sure how he's gonna take it. Now, what she shares with him is probably not that surprising to any of you that keep up with Amy on social media. It's just that she's not ready to move because she feels like she needs to stick around in their current home to take care of Tammy, especially post-COVID and all of that, which like makes sense to me. But she does talk about, I mean, in that video where she introduced Gage, she talked about how like their apartment's so small that a lot of like the baby things that they have for Gage, like they keep at her mom's house. End of the story, they're still living in the same spot. They're still living in the same spot, the same place they always have been. So Chris makes it back to the doctor in this episode. I'm not sure where we're at in this timeline, but as you know, at this point, it's kind of a confusing timeline. Okay, so he's already made it back to the doctor, and he finds out that he lost 18 pounds, which means that he is able to get the surgery, and he does plan on following through with said surgery. Chris also mentions that he needs to stop smoking in order to get the surgery, which I don't know that I realized that he did that, but his voice now makes so much more sense, like why he sounds the way that he does. I've always found his voice, even though it's quite raspy, to be very soothing, but I didn't really have an explanation for why it sounded that way. But, you know, if you're a smoker, that might be the reason why. And he said he's been smoking since he was like 13 years old. And at this point, he's really worried that Tammy's gonna have a negative reaction because, you know, Chris was supposed to do this with her, blah, 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 blah. We did this all in season 1 with Amy getting the surgery and Tammy not getting it. So, y'all, I don't know what else to say. And actually, Amy has this to say about his concerns.
We're running out of fat people in the family for you to help get surgery with.
Which is true. I mean, truly, sis needs to just do this for herself. There are only so many family members that y'all have to try and hold her accountable. And she clearly doesn't want the help from family members. Y'all have been trying and it's not working. So she's gonna have to figure something else out. Amy also says that Tammy will sometimes text or get in contact with her whenever Jerry goes grocery shopping, because she says that Jerry doesn't know where any of the healthy food in the grocery store is. And so she, you know, requests that Amy goes and gets it for her. Which I'm like, how does a grown adult human not know where the healthy parts of the grocery store are? In fact, like most grocery stores, the first place you walk into is the fucking produce section, like the healthiest section. So how do you not know where that is? That is some bullshit if I ever heard it. That is just some straight up bullshit. That is some straight up bullshit. I will say that Amy does give Jerry a little bit of the benefit of doubt that, you know, when Tammy gets angry over not getting the food she wants, she gets angry, and it's a lot to deal with, and Amy talks about that from her personal experience, which I can imagine. Like, I'm sure Tammy is not easy to deal with and not easy to say no to, but somebody's got to start doing it. And then this is probably one of the more fucked up parts of this episode, and pardon my language, but I truly just think it's fucked up. But apparently, Mama Slayton, who we've all been blessed to not have to deal with this whole entire season, she hasn't been on the actual show. Mama Slayton's out here buying burial plots for Tammy. Now, it's one thing, I think it is a thing that older folks do where they say, hey, I want to get some of my affairs in order and I want to buy my own burial plots. But to buy your daughter's burial plot before she is even dead. I mean, I get that they're concerned that that is like the very real outcome that could happen to Tammy. I get that. I feel that. I understand where you're coming from. But honestly, truly, the point of like old folks buying the plots for themselves is so that they can take away that burden from their kids. If Tammy passes away tomorrow, that burden is not going to be on anybody that it isn't already on, right? That burden is still going to be on you, Mama Slayton. That burden is still going to be on Amy, Michael, Chris, and Misty, okay? So, like, that is just like, what, to me, that says I have no faith in my kid, and I wouldn't be surprised if Tammy was pissed off about that as a concept. Like, that to me is so wild. If my mom ever, she wouldn't, first of all, but if my mom ever, I don't, so that, and maybe I misunderstood what was going on there. I hope there's some good reason that she felt like that was a good idea, but that's a no for me, dog. And then we get an update from Chris that's basically like, listen, she's not doing nothing. That we had that appointment with Dr. Smith and she's not done a single thing. She didn't set up therapy. She's not trying at this diet. She's not working. She's not doing a lick of anything. And he's like, our only option at this point is to put her in a facility that can take care of her, that can provide her with a controlled diet, that can provide her with therapy. And honestly, like, I feel like Chris is on to something. I feel like that's where Amy's at. Amy's like, I'm at my wit's end here. There's no more rope. I don't know what to do here. And she needs somebody that's going to tell her no. And if all of these people in her life are going to tell her no, then they need to pay someone to tell her no. Truly, that's my thoughts. So then they have, which is the big scene and the scene that this all ends on, okay? They have this big old family dinner. They got Chris and his wife there. Michael and Amy are there. Tammy's there. Jerry's not there. And they cook all this food, and it's also where Chris reveals to Tammy that he's been approved for surgery. Now, they show a lot of shots of, like, Tammy just not super interested. Amy says that Tammy's response is very nonchalant to it. I mean, she does look irritated. Like, we see that she seems very frustrated or irritated or not enthusiastic for him. That could be editing, or that could be her real life response, and that's the story that we're going to talk about. So she seems like she is not a part of it. And then after that, it's kind of like all hell breaks loose, because Chris is like, listen, Jerry's contributing to your unhealthy eating. And Tammy's like, not anymore. Then Tammy goes on to say all of this.
I've been trying. Y'all ain't here every day.
You're right, I'm not. Because I have a life of my own. But I also know...
But I'm not gonna have y'all attacking him.
And Chris is like, listen, he doesn't need to enable you. He made you this huge ass meatloaf that was the size of this pan, okay? He made it for just the two of you. And she's like, I didn't eat all that at once. And he was like, don't bullshit me. And I was like, oh my God, Chris is like really not, he's really not dealing with any of her nonsense in this moment. Whew. And then she's like, well, listen, it's clicking for me what y'all are doing here. And y'all only wanted to have this dinner so we could have an intervention. And she's like, I remember when y'all took me out to that restaurant and had the intervention with me. And now you're doing it again. You said, we'll get her to come to the table with this food. And then we're gonna intervene. And she was like, I don't appreciate that you brought me to this conversation and now everybody's yelling, even though she was literally, at that point at least, the only one yelling. Like, Chris really did not approach it from a yelling angle at the beginning. I think towards the end of it all, he might have been yelling. It's hard to tell, he's got a raspy voice. But she definitely instigated the yelling part. She was the one that started the yelling. And Chris even says, like, hey, listen, nobody's trying to fight here. We're just trying to talk to you because we care about you. And he eventually just leaves because he's like, I can't deal with this mess right now. And then he has all of this to say.
She's gained 100 pounds in the last few months. And if I'm not bringing her the food and Amy's not bringing her the food, then Jerry's got to be bringing it to her because the bitch ain't leaving the house.
No, it's true. It's true.
It's just so frustrating to see everybody around Tammy care about her and her to like not care about her. You know, that's the part that of this all that like really is frustrating to me. And I say that also as somebody who cares about her and is seeing her manifest like her frustrations in like the worst ways possible. And I just like, I don't know. I truly don't know what you do at this point to get her to give a fuck. And Chris even comes back at one point and tries to continue the conversation. And this is Tammy. She's just, oh, look at that Zachary Michael tweeting on the Twitter. Look at him on the Instagram. Oh my gosh. Hey, boo. That was her. I'm just imagining she was like looking at my social media. She probably wasn't. And it gets to the point that Amy's like, listen, when do I get to stop caring about this if you've just stopped caring about yourself? And honestly, I really feel that from Amy. Like, I feel like that is a legit and valid feeling for her to feel because she's put so much energy into this shit and Tammy's put like none. So that was basically the end. Chris packs up, leaves, bada bing, bada boom, and then we get this little 2 week later selfie cam from Tammy, although it's probably filmed more like this. But she's filming this little selfie video and she talks about how she's looking for a nursing rehabilitation center, which she probably, I think she really does find one because if you watched my review from last week, there was a TikTok where people were speculating that she was in a hospital, but it's more likely that she's probably in a rehabilitation center based on that video. So you can go check that out on the last one because I included that TikTok there. And we also find out that Jerry and Tammy are on some kind of a break, but he also, I don't think I mentioned this in the last video, he's still out here liking Amy and Tammy's posts. So he's still somewhere in the picture. So yeah, and then the last thing that's on the screen is that she hasn't been able to successfully find a rehabilitation center that can take her in. But again, like I said, I'm pretty sure via TikTok that she's somewhere, hopefully, and I hope that she gets all the help that she can get because there was a point on the show where I think it was Amy that said that the only, or maybe Chris, I don't remember, but one of them said that the only time where she's successfully lost weight is when she's been hospitalized or in kind of like a nursing home rehabilitation center type of situation deal. So that's it. That's season 2. I really didn't realize that this was the end, but that's it. That was the end. And I had so much fun this season. I hope you all did too. You know, it seems like it's still up in the air if there's going to be a season 3. I've seen things online from Tammy that suggest maybe she's not sure if she would want to do a season 3. I think she said something like that in a TikTok live or something. I don't know. It's kind of like all over the place with her TikToks. But you know, I'm interested to see what would happen, what will happen. I will obviously still be watching if there's a season 3, but I'm also gonna pay attention to their YouTubes and their social media, and if anything else happens, I would love to share it all with you here on my channel. So stay tuned, but also if you only subscribe for the Slate and Sister content, just know I have a whole bunch of other things here on my channel that you might enjoy as well. So keep a lookout for those things. And make sure to subscribe down below if you haven't already. Click the bell button so you get notifications. Leave me a comment, hit like, and click share as well because it all helps with the algorithm. And also follow me on all of my social media. I had so much fun with y'all this season. I hope you did too. And I'll see y'all next time. Bye.